Okay, so there you were.
Yes, there I was. I did a seminar called Effectiveness Seminar at Landmark, and it was about 2016 now. And I think it was one of the first sessions, and we were basically thinking about creating a project from a life intention. So the question was, what is going to be that intention, that sentence that you just need to remind yourself, and it will get you out of bed in the morning, and it will get you really present to what you're up to in your life. And I started, really thinking about it for myself. And the thing that is really important for me is to really be able to express myself. And but of course, because we were looking at, this is going to turn into some kind of project eventually. So what is something that I could bring for other people, other beings? And I just remember thinking, okay, I'm going to be the voice for the voiceless.
The
And
voice
that
for the
was it.
voiceless.
The voice for the voiceless. And that was it. That was my sentence. And in that moment I got really connected to how important it is for me to speak up for myself, and also have other people around me being able to speak up for themselves. And or anything, like I've had dogs for many years, and I just really like the idea of being really connected to nature and the animals around me. And uh, and that was my sentence, right? Being the voice for the voiceless. And then we started looking, okay, what project can you turn this into? How is that going to work? And I just remember thinking, I've got no idea of how this is going to go. The only thing that I knew of was that, I think I was just finishing my master's degree at the time. I'm actually in Nottingham now, but I was doing my degree at Nottingham Trent University. And I, I had become a trained knitwear designer, and I just remember thinking, I really want to see how that looks like onto the animal world, but without putting too much thinking behind it. So I thought, okay, I'll do something in my work around that. And then, the seminar session ended, and I just remember, like, I was completely in my bubble of thoughts, and I just really wanted to find out things about the animal side of things behind the knitwear industry. And I took a few months to do some research, and I came across things that I had really never really understood, or maybe I had been told about it, but they really never really sunk into my thoughts and my heart. And I discovered that in the sheep industry, for instance, there are still practices um, in certain countries where sheep are not really, even if you think, oh, knitwear is just shaving a sheep, but there's not necessarily always a great care when those animals are treated. Sometimes this happens so quickly and so violently that some of them actually lose their lives. uh, and and that was something that really struck me, because I thought, I don't want to be, I do want to create beautiful things. That's why I'm training in this industry, but I don't want to think that there is bloodshed behind what I create. And then, I carried on with some research. And, at the time, I had also used other fibers like silk. And of course, you wouldn't think about it so much. But of course, to extract the silk, you need to boil the cocoons, which means that, the worms inside actually die, of course. And that also really struck me, as in, I really don't want to be part of this anymore. I had done it for a few years because I was knitting for years before doing my master's, but I really didn't like the idea of having that in my conscience. So so I thought, okay, so my project is going to be basically creating a vegan knitwear business. And at the time, I just left my master's, and I started speaking to people. I quickly realized that there wasn't a lot of agreement into the fashion industry when it came to vegan fashion in 2006. And it took a while to kind of get through those conversations, sometimes even with yarn suppliers saying to me, oh, you're not going to go very far without the use of wool. You know, we use wool everywhere. And that again, that really struck me as, wow, you know, wool is everywhere. You know, animal products are literally everywhere. And bless you. And
I muted
yeah,
it.
that is really how it started. So
So what do you mean, like the fashion industry is just not very into vegan?
yes, I mean, I have to say things have shifted, say, in the past 4 years. And now, you know, you just need to Google vegan fashion and there's all sorts of stuff that comes out. But in terms of fibers and in terms of materials, we as humans are still so reliant on animals. You know, if you think about the shoes that we buy, you know, that you see in the market, you know, when you check, like I like to check my labels a lot. I always check with, you know, what's happening in this garment, you know, where was it made, who made it, what is it made of? And you'll be surprised to see how many times they just insert animal materials like leather or wool in garments that where you wouldn't necessarily expect it. So it is.
You think, is there any vegan wool, or is wool just not vegan?
Yeah, no, that's very good. So when you technically wool comes from sheep, and I call my fibers like vegan yarns because they are alternatives to animal fibers. But in my case, because there have been other businesses that have used vegan materials, but what you would see sometimes is that actually you come across polyester, acrylics, and basically plastic derived materials. Those are the common vegan alternatives for wool, as in sheep wool.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm doing with my work, I'm actually using only plant derived materials, so natural derived materials rather than plastic. So maybe I'm not sure right now, but if people think of vegan wool, I mean, wool itself comes from sheep, but of course, if you put the vegan, you might think, oh, maybe it's some kind of, you know, animal-free alternative, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's natural. It could be plastic derived.
Synthetic. Or like animal-friendly wool?
Animal-friendly wool, yeah, I mean, it's...
Like, would you have like wool that's actually like taken off the animal in a nice way? Or
Yes, there are companies that have started doing that. Yes, in fact, there are some companies that suppliers that would have maybe smaller productions of wool and would be creating sustainable. So they would do it with the extra care and
those would be smaller productions.
yes, it would be smaller productions. And yes, and that was also something that I remember thinking about. But at the time, I just told myself, no, this is it. I'm gonna move away from the animal derived products. But yes, in answer to your questions, yes, there are some companies that would do that as well.
Oh, all right, continue on your journey.
Yes,
so plant-based.
So the plant-based. So yes, so it's so the stuff that I do is first of all vegan, but you know, plant-based as in natural. So the garments that I create are knitted using bamboo, linen, and organic cotton. So far, those are the three fibers that I've been working with.
So organic cotton is cotton that was not boiled to take out the worms.
Also, no. So organic cotton. So cotton is a plant.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is that the majority, and this is also something that is not necessarily common knowledge, but cotton is one of the products that normally, can produce a lot of issues with the environment when it's produced in huge scales as cotton normally is. But organic cotton means that there isn't the same amount of pesticides that you would normally use on those huge fields of cotton. So when you have less pesticides in those plants, it means that, first of all, the people involved in farming it suffer from less problems than normal. So it is actually, I didn't even know this myself, but
Wow.
because cotton normally, when it's mass produced to those standards, can be harmful for the people that grow it because of the amount of chemicals that they need to use. But when you switch to organic cotton, it means that the cultivation in itself doesn't use the same chemicals, and that means that it's okay for the farmers, but it also means that it's okay for the environment, because of course, if you don't have all those chemicals in the air, it means that the environment pulls in for more insects and wildlife, or whatever would fly on a field. And then in the long run, when you actually wear organic cotton, it's very soft. You would be surprised if I give you one of my jumpers, one of the first reaction is, oh, it's very soft. And it is very soft because there is, I guess, less stuff in it. It's better for your skin. Yes, and they also say that it's hypoallergenic, like it doesn't cause any skin reaction.
Wow. And so that was, and how do they get rid of the worms? Or
So no, the worms are only in silk. So
that's in silk. Okay.
yeah.
Not
So
cotton.
I would no, not in cotton. No, cotton is a plant, so there's no animal involved in
Oh,
the
what is?
production.
I'm so I'm so close. What is silk made out of?
So silk is made of so have you ever seen silkworms? We used to have them at school sometimes.
Oh,
Well,
worms that make silk.
yes. Yes, so
I
they're
think I
like,
was confused between silk and cotton.
yeah,
Okay.
no, that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. But yes, silk. I mean, I remember being in primary school and we had those silkworms everywhere around because they would start in a box and we were just meant to observe them, right? But then they would eventually eat lots of, I think they eat leaves. I don't remember what leaves, maybe it's eucalyptus. I don't remember, but they eat lots of leaves. They get fatter, they get bigger, and then eventually they create a cocoon around them. And that is the cocoon that really, if you were to
Take it
shred it,
apart.
take it apart, it would create the silk.
Oh, so then you
The
have to
silk.
kill the worms.
Well, yes, because if you don't kill the worm, so if you actually kill the worm, you can just extract the yarn without any breakage to it. But if you were to wait for some, I don't know, for the way to come out of it or something, you would have lots of cuts in the thread. So it would be a different kind of silk. I guess maybe it wouldn't be as easy. I don't know, technically, I've not really researched silk to that extent. But yes,
Wow.
if you boil the worm, if you boil the cocoon, the worm dies, but then it's
Yeah.
easier. That
Yeah,
means
and
that it's
cotton.
easy.
I remember in Israel, like we passed by like cotton fields. And it's like this like cloud that like dries and then there's like has like a little, white fluffy stuff inside. So that's cotton.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. 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 Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
And silk is made out of wow, I didn't know that. I
No. No.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. It's not common knowledge. Like I mean, maybe like somehow someone says yes, a silkworm, but I have realized that even as a human being in my journey, it's one thing is, yes, this is the worm, and in being in primary school and seeing it doing stuff, but
Mhm.
then in the fashion industry, of course, you would need mass production of these creatures to produce silk. So then, of
But
course,
usually they just kill the worm. Sorry, I'm just like so clueless. Like usually when you make silk, you just feed the worms, let them get fat, create a cocoon, and then you just boil everything, kill the worms.
that's basically what happens to extract the silk. Yes.
Wow, I had no idea.
No,
And what do they do with the worms? Do they feed them to animals? Do they?
I don't know that. I've not gotten into that side of the research. That would be a good question, actually. What happens afterwards? And
Yeah,
that's
a lot of
basically
worms.
yes.
So the vegan material basically are not wool, they're not silk. That would be cotton, that would be bamboo.
Yeah, it will be plant-based. So, organic cotton, as we said, it's a plant. Bamboo is also a plant. Linen is also another plant. So my plan in the long term is to, you know, as soon as I manage to get a proper flow with the business, is to expand the number of plants that I work with. But as for now, those are the three ones that I've been able to work with.
I can't wait to see the things that you make, besides that beautiful sweater.
Thank you.
What is that? What is your sweater made out of, the one that you're wearing now?
Yeah, this one is bamboo.
Bamboo. Ah, the colors
Yeah.
are amazing.
Yes, yes, they are amazing. Yes, I've been working with a vegan supplier in Canada who's been hand dyeing her yarns, but hand painting her yarns. And because well, I guess because mainly she's been doing yarns for hand knitters, but I have been buying quite a few yarns from her. Um, Her technique is so unique because instead of like dyeing the same, huge batches of yarns, she will do, I guess, smaller batches. And because she paints them, so she paints them. Yeah, I guess she does paint them. All the yarns, all the batches look slightly different. So that means that when you knit, when I knit using her yarns, all the jumpers say that I get blue, but it's never the same blue. There's lots of different blues combined. So it makes it very exciting on a production level because you never know what's going to come out, basically, even if I know what design I'm making, but you'll never know what's going to come out. So it's
And
very
what colors
exciting.
so what, like does she use vegan colors? I'm sure they're
Yeah,
vegan.
so she's vegan herself, but she's been what she says is that she's been using low impact dyes. So because of that, and I guess because she's doing small quantities, it makes it a very low impact business. Like her business is a low impact
Low
ones in a
impact
sense.
means.
It would mean that whatever dyes she's using, whatever, let's call them chemicals, but whatever things that she uses to dye the yarns is not going to have a negative impact in our waters, in our environment. Um,
Mm.
so it becomes a safer product, not only to dye, so in terms of for herself, for her own health, but ultimately, when we wear it, um, you yeah, it will become a safer product to wear as well.
I have so many questions.
Yes.
I just don't want to cut you in the middle of the story, but yeah, I guess how do you wash it to make sure that you don't? By the way, I have bamboo socks and they're so comfortable.
Oh yes, yes, yes. It's quite common to find bamboo socks. I've been getting bamboo socks as well.
And
Yeah,
it's
they're
kind
very.
of like wool, like so cotton has like, like more of an absorption where wool, is like better for the winter. So like bamboo has those like I feel like those characteristics that they doesn't like keep water in them. It's kind of
Hmm.
like a replacement for wool.
Yes, so yes, that it's a good way of looking at it, Shalavit, because um, like even today it's quite cold in Nottingham, and for me, wearing a bamboo jumper is a good alternative to, you know, a woolen, like an animal derived product. One of the characteristics of bamboo is that it's an insulating fiber. Um, so, and I guess that's why you're so happy with your socks, probably because even though they, you know, they are not made of wool, they will still be able to give you some kind of protection from the weather in that sense. Um, because my this particular jumper is, you know, what I would say a medium gauge from a technical level, so it's not very thin, but it's also not very chunky as a product, and it just, you know, keeps me quite well insulated in winter. I mean, of course, if I go out in the snow, I would wear a jacket on top. I wouldn't just go with my bamboo jumper like in the snow like that. But it's a good product to have. Um, yes, yeah, I'm very happy with them.
Wow. So when you were saying in the beginning, Maria Laura, like giving voice to the voiceless, it's basically to the animals.
Yes, yes, it's the animals, but also, you know, it's everyone involved. Like, you know, when I was telling you earlier about the production of organic cotton, like reading about productions and what workers would have had to go through without using you know, the extra care, for instance, in the organic cotton, like made me really think. I you know, I don't want animals to suffer, but I also don't want people to suffer. You know, I want,
Yeah.
you know, and I think this is, it's very important for me, and also with the people that I work, because really I'm still really a one woman business, but I do work with many people. You know, my my right hand and left hand and everything is a good friend of mine, and we we always talk through every single thing that we're doing, because it's very important for me that everyone is clear and happy about what we're doing. And you know, had I the possibility of having a, like, my dream in the long term is to have my own factory, my own knitwear factory where I produce my own things, and all the people who will be working there would be people who are really excited about the opportunity of, you know, giving a voice to the animal world, but also to the people involved. So that's of course a very long-term dream, but like for me, that's my idea of paradise, you know, where people are able to say what they need to say, and there's no animal cruelty involved in what we do. And yeah, and you know, even the I get the knitting done very close to Nottingham, and I work with, you know, professionals. Like there's no uh, children involved in the knitting. You know, it's really highly trained professional people who can operate machines that, you know, I studied at school, and even though if I can't properly operate those complex machines, but you know, I have an understanding of them. And for me, it's very important to be able to work with people who, you know what the result will be when we do the knitting, you know, are professional, and you know, are paid well. I guess, you know, there's no underpayment in what I do. So um yeah, that's
That's so
it's very
incredible.
important.
That is so incredible. How long have you been doing that? And then I'll probably want to ask you just just introduce yourself, because I didn't do that. I was like, let's go to straight to the story. Um, so how long have you been doing that? And then
Yeah, so it was pretty much just after my seminar, you know, the effectiveness seminar that I was telling you about. That was maybe October 2016. I then did some research on the fibers. I then graduated in the December. So say really, I would say beginning of 2017, I started working on this. Yes, yes. And I was doing knitting before, but it wasn't vegan, right? It never crossed my mind, but because of that seminar, it woke something up in my mind and in my heart.
And so you knitted this sweater.
So yes, so this one, no, so yes, I designed it and I got it knitted in that sampling unit that I was telling you about outside of Nottingham.
What does that mean? Like, like when I think knitting, I'm like, like there's two little sticks. And,
Yeah, very good. Yeah. Yeah, so no, that would be the old school way of doing it. I mean, ideally, I'd love to do that, but it wouldn't be sustainable in the long term. So basically what I do is so in this case, because the yarn is the yarn from Canada, it normally comes in, actually, shall I show you what it comes? Because I've got some yarns here that I can show you. Let me show you. So for instance, okay, this is an example, okay, shall we? So say that the yarn arrives from Canada like this. Okay, so it's yeah, it's a hunk of yarn. So what I normally do before I go to the sampling unit, because the sampling unit is where you can get the knitting done, right? But it needs to end up on a cone of yarn. So I would then have to open it up. So the cone of yarn that you would normally, and just to show you things so that you understand. So when you go to the sampling unit, you need to have something like this. So basically a plain cone with the yarn on. So because it arrives like this, I have to open it, so completely unravel it, and I put it by hand around the cone, a paper cone, so it becomes a bit like that, so not very regular, as you can see. But then when I go to the sampling unit, they have a winding machine, a very nice winding machine, which I would love to have one day. And then I can just wind it up again with this machine, and that would make sure that it's as clean looking as this. So then when that's done, we can put it on the machine. So we would have worked on the design beforehand, so we would know that this yarn works with that specific design that we're working on. So the technician would then, select the fibers, set the machine up. And when I say set the machine up, because they are programmers, these people are technicians, but they're programmers. They would first work on their screen, do whatever stitching design they have in the intention of doing, then send it off to the machine. Then they would need to go to the machine, set all the threads, and unfortunately I can't show you a picture of the machine, but they're quite big machines.
Oh, cool.
Set all the threads up and then press start, and then the machine starts knitting. Wow. And now it sounds quite, well, actually I don't know if it sounds very straightforward, but it sounds like, then the machine does everything, which is true, but the technician needs to be close to the machine to keep an eye that the knitting gets done in the right tension, what we call tension, so that when the final product is finished, it's not too loose or too tight, like it just feels right. So they basically have to work very close to the machine to keep an eye that the machine does what it's meant to be doing.
So then they create a fabric, and then you sew.
Yeah, so they would create. So this is a very good question. They would create what because I like to do what I call zero waste knitting. We use something called fully fashioning technique. So when it's what it means is that, say for instance, that I was to knit this jumper on the machine, it would do a panel of every jumper in exact the same shape that I designed, which means, so say that I did the front of the jumper first, then the back, and then the sleeves, there would be no waste of yarn, because then when all the panels come out of the machine, another person who operates another machine called a linker would put them together without cutting the fabric.
Wow.
So when you do
Uh-oh. I lost you for a second. But that sounds really fascinating. So I'm just gonna, okay. Yeah, it froze for a second. So, and it could be my connection. So you're basically saying it's cut exactly the same way that it's then gonna be sewn. So there's,
yes,
um,
exactly that.
wow.
Yes. So
Okay.
that's also very important, because it means that you're not wasting resources, basically.
Wow. Hmm. Okay. So, what do I want to do first? Well, first is how do we, um, yeah, how do people reach you? I guess we're gonna have the links up here, um, for people to find out more. And if people want to buy, like, do you do like all sizes? Or is it custom
Yes.
made?
So yeah. It's yeah, quite a few sizes. So for most garments, is small, medium, and large. For some others, the bamboo jumpers, for instance, it's only medium, and it depends. But yes, there is a bit of there is a
Mostly
bit of
adults.
yes, there's quite a few designs on the website. But yes, and then I also do scarves and accessories like shawls. So of course they would come in one size only.
Like what?
Shawls, like
Oh,
pocket scarves, so things that you can just
yeah.
put on your fingers.
So like if I have a baby that I want to get something for, you
Yes.
might not make a baby size, but you could just get a shawl for your baby. Or
That's exactly it. Yes.
that is just so cool. I, I kind of wish I did this before Christmas, but there's always reasons to buy beautiful gifts for people that are so environmental conscious. And
Yes.
yeah. Oh, that's so cool. And like, what colors do you have? Or are you just like all colors? Or
Yeah, there's a bit, you'd say it. So when it comes to the bamboo garments, like the one that I'm wearing, um, so far I've only worked with brown, green, and blue. But then again, I always tell people who are thinking of getting bamboo to get in touch, because, as I said before, the bamboo yarn, because of the way it's painted, looks completely different every time. So the ones that I've put on the website might not necessarily reflect what I've got in
make that
stock.
color? Yeah.
So I guess those are the three colors, but they vary. And then the other colors, I've been working with blues, greens, and recently black as well. And I recently just bought some more yarn. So there will be more things coming through, but quite, yeah, slow pace. But you basically
All
on the
colors.
website. Yeah, I've got
Mermaid colors.
it's kind of blues again, but then I've got some exciting new earthy colors as well.
Oh,
There's new things coming.
oh my God. Thank you so much for sharing all that.
Thank you.
It's it's just so exciting. I feel like it's something that you could wear in the morning and just like take a deep breath in and be like, like this is the best, piece of clothing that I could, wear for peace, for the environment, for animals, for the people that are working. Is like such a conscious free. And I think just being present to that is just so, yeah, and being hugged by a sweater that says everything is okay.
That's very nice, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I tell me about, just now I want to, introduce you. What's your name?
Yeah, yeah.
and like your life story that brought you to create those incredible garments.
Thank you, Shala. Yes, my name is Maria Laura Wandavi. I'm Italian. I was born in Sweden, um, and I was raised in Italy. And then I came to this country when I was 19 years old. Um,
This country
yes,
is
as in, sorry, in the UK, in England. And I lived in London for 15 years. And then I moved up to Nottingham, as I said before, to do my master's. That was 2015 when I moved up. And I met Joe here, who is now my husband. So I ended up staying in Nottingham, and we've got two beautiful dogs together.
are we gonna get to see the dogs?
No, not yet. It will have to be a separate photo. But they seem to have settled. So yes, yes, not yet.
Okay.
And yes, and that's a little bit about me. I'm 40, turning 41 soon. I came to England as a result of a bet with my mother. When I was 19 years old, I wasn't doing very well at school when I was in Italy, especially towards the end. I was doing classical studies, which is an Italian thing, I guess. You can specialize in different subjects, and I chose classical studies as a teenager. But towards the end, I wasn't doing very well, and my mother said to me, "Well, look, it sounds like you might not be able to go through with your exams." So she said, if that happens, if you fail, don't worry, I will not be mad at you. You just have to use it as an opportunity to repeat the year, because that's what happens in Italy. If you fail, you just have to repeat the year and take all the subjects again. But then she said, but then, if you pass, then maybe you could look at it as an opportunity to go somewhere nice. And at the time, I kind of was a bit on the resign and cynical. But when she said go somewhere nice, and then she said, "Oh, you like London? Why don't you go to London for a couple of months?" I remember thinking, yes, I'm going to London. Then and then I passed basically my final exams by 5 points, and I just remember thinking, yes, I am going. So yes, I won the bet, and I went to London. I think my mother thought that I was gonna fail. But then yes, I just remember saying bye. And yes, and I stayed for, I guess I ended up staying for 21 years in the end, but yes, nobody knew that I was going to stay for this long. And of course,
What did you do in London when you first moved there?
Yeah, when I first moved there, I've always liked English language, Shalavit. I've always liked languages, but particularly English, and I thought I thought I could speak it well as an Italian, but then of course, being in full immersion with the culture, I moved to a hostel by myself. I only had one person that I'd met a few months before, and that was it. So actually experiencing the language rather than studying it on books was, a different experience. And I studied English, so I was working towards doing an English exam that I could have potentially used if I'd returned back to Italy. So I was studying in the morning, and then a few months after moving to the hostel, I started working as well. I was teaching Italian to people. Yes, conversational Italian, and that's how it started. That's how I moved to London. I guess,
Wow.
1999. Yes.
Wow. So you started teaching Italian in London. It's just so exotic.
Yeah.
And so you taught Italian and you worked at the hostel, or you lived there, or both?
No, yeah, I was just basically sleeping at the hostel. Of course, I met many people. I mean, the hostel time was very surreal, one of the funniest times of my life. There was nothing certain at the hostel because there were always new people every day,
Wow.
always, interesting flows of people, a fascinating environment. And also I had a great time. I had met, as I said, this friend. Her name was Zahara. And, it was thanks to her that I really settled in there. And then I was able to make friends because she was the only one I was kind of communicating with, even though I didn't have a clue of what she was on about for most of the time, but I just really liked her so much.
No clue of what?
I didn't have a clue of what she was saying because sometimes I couldn't really understand what she was saying to me. But I just remember thinking, she's amazing. I just love her. And I was really drawn to be with her because I felt so safe, even far from home. I felt like she really, she really understood me. And that's why I was just hanging around with her all the time.
Wow. I'm just trying to think like, people in my life that made me feel safe or just kind of realizing like what a difference that makes to people when you make them feel safe. Yeah. For you, it was like staying in London and establishing a life.
Yes, yes.
That is so beautiful. Um,
Mm.
yeah, so I guess maybe one more question about, I guess looking back, it's a question that here at PosiFest we ask everybody. Um, and it's the goal is to get you all gooey and relatable because like you've done so many amazing things. And so it's asking you what is your advice for yourself looking back? Um, it could be looking back anywhere, looking back at your time in London or just kind of looking back at your life. Like what would be something that you would tell yourself?
Wow. Yes, that's a very good question,
Or more
Shelley.
than one thing.
Yeah. Well, two things come to mind. The very first one is love, love myself. Love yourself um, as an individual. I am very, I can be very hard with myself, and I know that when I come from loving myself, there's nothing wrong that can happen out of that. And the second thing that comes to my mind,
I copy that, by the way.
again,
I copy that
yes, yes,
100%.
mm,
Me too.
mm, yeah, very important. The second thing is don't be afraid to make mistakes because I have made so many mistakes. I and I still make mistakes like every day. And sometimes, it kind of links up to like links to the previous sentence of love yourself because I always had it, I guess, as a young person, teenager, when I first came here, that, I had to get things right, or I still have to get things right. But actually, there's more learning in getting things wrong than getting them right. And
Oh, I love that.
yeah, I would say don't be afraid of making mistakes.
That is so huge.
Mm.
Mm.
I've seen it a lot with my relationships, all relationships, with partners or friends, like so many mistakes, but that's where the golden is eventually.
Wow.
Yeah, so those are my two.
Can I comment on that? I think loving myself is probably the biggest thing. I think waking up in the morning, there's like so many things going on in my head of like, I'm not okay. This is not okay. I'm angry at this. Why is this happening? What's wrong with me? And I think waking up, sometimes I think like 2 days ago, I kind of let myself sleep in and it was this like act of loving myself. And it was just so beautiful because I was like, who else is going to love me? Like, yeah, like other people could try, and I'm sure they do, and it doesn't make any difference if I don't, because I won't receive it if I don't love myself too. And it's just so huge. I think I think for me, like in my efficacy, and then, and coming to efficacy, like making mistakes. Um, yeah, I feel like not loving myself also makes me more of a perfectionist. And nobody wants to be that. It's just such a hard way of being. Making mistakes is fun. It's emotional too. I think when you said, Maria Laura, when you said making mistakes with, like, even in relationships, I'm so afraid to hurt people. And my brother yesterday, my brother's a rabbi, and he was telling me yesterday um that he said he probably say yes too much. um
Wow.
and he's like, or maybe I'm just reflecting myself on you, Shalavit. Yeah, I was talking to him about, like, you know, I'm 38, I don't have a life partner yet, and I'm exhausted. There's something wrong with me. Um, like those are the conversations, and I'm like, I'm just letting myself be exhausted right now.
Mm.
And he was like, I don't know how he connected that, but he was like, oh yeah, it was, yeah, it's like being too nice. And I think being too nice is maybe sometimes being afraid of making mistakes, especially with people. Like being
Yes.
direct works much more, even if you might hurt somebody. Oh, it's so hard.
Yes.
Like trying not to hurt people, but oh, so afraid to make mistakes.
Mm.
So I'm actually doing the communications course next weekend.
Oh, wow.
And I was talking to, like, the person who's signing me up, and I said, well, sometimes I think that if my family, um like, I feel like I'm not expressed enough the way I want, like in terms of, like, like body diversity that I promote, or like um like um sexual acceptance, communication, and I'm like, oh, I can't be completely that because of my family. I don't want to hurt them. And he was like, look more deep into that. If it wasn't your family, there would be something else. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to lose my PhD if I'm too expressed. And I'm like, once I get my PhD, I don't want to lose that PhD that I got if I'm too expressed. Like, there's always a story of, like, why can I not be expressed? And he said, why are you trying? You asked me to look at where am I trying to look good, um, and just so I'm just present to what you said, Maria Laura, about, like, not being afraid to make mistakes. I think that's something that, like, for me, really hinders me of moving forward. Like, afraid to hurt somebody, afraid to this, afraid to make mistakes. Um, yes, that was huge for me.
Mm.
So I take for my day loving myself and making mistakes. May today be full of mistakes.
Yes. Yes.
It's scary and exciting. Um,
Yes.
I don't know if I could do it. And I also want to share with the people watching us that Maria Laura is also my buddy. We call each other once a week, and we kind of think together about what we want to create in the world and with our lives. And it's just so great to set our intentions. And Maria Laura really stood for me many times. And I think you were mentioning that woman in London. I just remember, like, that one day that you said that, forgot exactly the words that you did, but, like, it was just that, that you kind of, like, are accountable for me or something like that. And um, yeah, oh, that you're committed to my journey. And just, like, knowing that someone's committed to your journey just makes such a difference. It just creates this I don't want to say cocoon because it's not a cocoon. It's a cotton cushioning of life, knowing that there are people that are committed to you and to what you're creating. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Shalavit. And yeah, it's a privilege being your person, your body in this beautiful journey together. And it's it's I'm getting to know you every week. And I yeah, I'm just really grateful for um, your friendship and for the opportunity to share about what I do, which is very important for me. And yeah, I just really want to say thank you.
Thank you. And what you do is so cool. I'm so happy I got the opportunity to share this. I just disappeared. We just got high speed internet, and for some reason, it just makes my Zoom jump sometimes.
Oh
Um,
wow. Yeah.
I don't know why it does that. Um, but yeah, thank you so much. This is
Thank you.
really, really cool.
Thank
Yeah, and once I
you.
hang up, I'll get all your links and put them up
Yes.
there. And yeah, it's just so inspiring. Really, thank you for your stand for animals and your commitment for the impact on animals and all those people that don't have so much of a voice. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Shalavit. And that was a very special opportunity to be able to share about it. Nowadays with all the social media and technical things, there's lots of writing, but it's so different when I actually get to speak, to say things. It's an experience for me to go through everything that fuels my work, and also being able to make a difference to other people from what I share. So thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you so much.